Quiz tomorrow, guys, is only on section 4.4. We're going to quiz tomorrow and then start on graphing, sine and cosine, which is 4.5 on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we'll start 4.6 Friday, Monday. Your quiz tomorrow, you will not have your unit circle and you will not have a calculator. Everything you guys can do without both of those things. There's 7 questions. Everything that we've talked about in section 4.4, there's 3 videos uploaded, 4.4 part 1, then there's part 2A, and there's part 2B. Notes, that sort of thing, just for this section. It's very, very basic, but it's a lot of information at one time. So if you have a question like 1, 2, or 3, right, and it's going to say show work, you guys can show me work for everything. When you're asked what quadrant that theta lies in, right, we're going to use our mnemonic device. This is how you would show me work. All students take calculus, right? What this means is in quadrant 1, this is quadrant 1, every single trig function and its reciprocal are positive. In quadrant 2, what's positive? Sine and cosecant. In quadrant 3, what's positive? Tangent and cotangent. And then in quadrant 4, what's positive? Cosine and its reciprocal secant. So you look at your first statement, cross off what does not apply, then you use the second statement. So the first statement says cosine is less than 0. If something is less than 0, it's what? Negative. So where is cosine negative? Or what can I cross out? I can cross off 4 because I know cosine's positive there. And where else can I cross off? The first one, because everything's positive there. So now with what I have left over, I look at my second statement. The second statement says cosecant. Well, what goes with cosecant? Sine. So cosecant and sine are what? Positive. So with what we have left over, guys, where are sine and cosecant positive? The second quadrant, quadrant 2. So your answer here would be quadrant 2. If you just make a random guess with no thought process or anything shown, I'm not going to give you guys credit for it. You have to show, and when I say show work, that's exactly how you would show it. If I look at number 2, right, same thing. All students take calculus. So my first statement says cotangent, which is also what? Tangent, is, what does greater than 0 mean? Positive. All right, so where are cotangents and tangent positive? What 2 quadrants? 1 and 3. So I'm going to cross off 2 and 4. All right, then my second statement says secant. Well, what goes with secant? Secant and cosine. So secant and cosine are greater than 0. That means what? Positive. So with what we have left over, where is cosine and secant positive? In quadrant 1, the first quadrant. So I know that my angle is in quadrant 1.
We cross off like the opposite of what it's on the top, right?
Mm-hmm. Just depends on how you read it and how you look at it. So all students take calculus. Sine is less than 0. That means it's what? Negative. So what can we cross off? I can cross off the first one for sure. And where else? The second quadrant. Okay. Now with what we have left over, secant. Secant goes with what? Cosine. Okay. Secant and cosine are positive, greater than 0. With what we have left over, where are secant and cosecant positive? In quadrant 4. So your answer here would be Q4. If you want to write in Roman numerals, you're welcome to. All right, that good? Okay, the second one, I'm not going to go through finding all 6 trig functions just because once we find our x, y, and r and our sines, and well, yeah, I mean, you guys know how to find the trig functions. You need to remember, guys, if you have a radical and it's in a denominator, you need to do what? You got to rationalize it. You can't leave it. If a radical breaks down, you need to break it down, those sorts of things. But this is a little bit different. When you have a question like this, because they're giving you some more information here. That is important, right? When they give you a trig ratio, we're talking about x value, your y value, and your r value. All right, when they give me the trig value, or they tell me that sine is -4/9, what are they telling me? What letters? What is sine? Y over r. All right, what do we know about r? Always positive. So I know that that negative is going to go with my 4, so -4. And I know that my r value is 9. Now from this point, can we easily find our x value? Yes. X squared plus -4 squared equals 9 squared. So x squared plus 16 equals 81, right? Subtract 16 from both sides. So x squared equals, it's 81 minus 16. 65, okay. So then we take the square root. So x equals the square root of 65. Now, if that breaks down, break it down. This doesn't. So if you guys just went from right here and did all 6 trig functions, you might be 100% right, you may not be. Why is this second piece of information so important? All right, they told me we got to figure out where theta lies, what quadrant. They told me in that first statement where sine is negative, they told me I can cross off which 2 quadrants already. If sine is negative, what can I cross off? First and second, okay? The second statement says tangent is also negative. So I can cross off what? The third. So where is this angle? Instead of quadrant 4. Why is that important? Well, what are the signs for quadrant 4? What's your x value? What's your y value? X is positive and y is negative. So you're good to go there. If that statement said tangent is greater than, what would your x value be? With what you had left over, it would be negative. That's why that second statement is so important. So now, guys, if you're going to find the trig functions, and say it again.
Sorry, can you explain what you crossed off the second one?
On which part? At the beginning?
Yeah.
Because sine is negative.
Oh.
My sine value is negative, so I know it can't be in quadrant 2, because that's where it's positive. Yep. Let's review our trig functions. Sine is what? Y over r. What's cosine? Cosine is x over r, right? What's tangent? Y over x, good. So your reciprocals, cosecant is r over y. Secant is r over x. And then cotangent is x over y, right? That's if your angle's not on the unit circle, which these ones aren't. So now if I said to you guys, what's the sine? You would put y over r, right? What's the cosine? You guys can handle doing that. But it's finding the x, y, r values and the signs that go with them. So if I look at this one, right? This is a great problem to do. Given that cotangent is 10 over 3, so I have x, I have y, and I have r. If they give me cotangent, guys, what 2 letters are they giving me? X and r, correct? I mean, x and y, I'm sorry. So my x value is 10, my y value is 3, correct? Can I go ahead here and figure out what r is? Yeah, I could say 10 squared plus 3 squared equals r squared. So 100 plus 9 equals r squared. So r is the square root of 109. All right, if that were to break down, you guys go ahead and do it. So r is the square root of 109. Now, from this point, guys, if you just said, okay, I'm going to find whatever trig functions they're asking me for, you have to check what quadrant the angle lies in. The first thing they told us is that cotangent is what kind of a number, positive or negative? Positive. So then I know it could either be in which quadrant? It could be in 1 or it could be in 3, right? You guys agree? Okay, so cross off these other two. But this second piece of information is so very important because the second thing says that the sine is less than 0. That means the sine of this angle is negative. So what can I cross off? I can cross off A. So you know that your angle lies in quadrant 3. Okay, fine, big deal. What does that really mean? God bless you. What does that really mean? My x value and my y value are what? Negative. So this is actually negative 10, and this is negative 3. If you guys just went ahead and told me all the trig functions based upon what you originally found, you would not have the correct signs. That's not partial credit off. That's all wrong because you're in the wrong quadrant.
So the reason why we put they give us that at the end so we can apply it back and then.
The first statement will tell you the trig function, like it'll give you the ratio, and that'll tell you like the first constraint, and then the second thing will narrow it down. So now when you guys, if I said to you, okay, what's the sine of this angle? Sine is y over r, right? So your sine of theta would be negative 3 over the square root of 109. Can I leave it like that? No, so we'd have to rationalize. This becomes negative 3 root 109 over 109. And then I say, oh, does that simplify? If it does, great. If not, don't worry about it. Then you find your trig functions. That makes sense? Okay. All right, let's scoot along here. I changed number 7 just because I wanted to do a different kind of number. But you guys will have questions. Super straightforward. I'll give you one in degrees. I'll give you one in radian. And it's going to say, find the reference angle, okay? Again, this is how you would show me work. And let's remind ourselves how to do this. Somebody asked me last period, how do you know? It was in the notes, guys. There's rules for whichever quadrant the angle lies in. So I have theta is 123 degrees. If my problem starts off in degrees, what should my answer be in? Degrees, okay? So let's think about this. This is 0, 360. Here is 90, 180, 270. Where is 123? It's in quadrant 2. It's over here somewhere. What is the rule, guys, for Q2? 180 minus theta, okay? So you have to say 180 minus 123. What do you get? 57 degrees, okay? Now let's check our answer. First of all, I started in degrees, so my answer should be in degrees. You know there's two things that a reference angle has to be. What are the two things? Positive and acute. Is 57 positive and acute? Okay, you're good to go.
If it's not,
Then you did something wrong.
Acute means less than 90.
Less than 90, yep. All right, again, I changed number 7 to negative 165. Go ahead and make that change real quick. If I start off with a negative 165, what should I do? We need to add 360. You want the angle that you start off with, you want it to be between 0 and 360, or 0 and 2 pi. If it's less than that, you add 360. If it's more than that, we subtract. So if I'm going to add 360 degrees here, all right, we don't have a calculator, but guys, what's 360 minus 165? How much? 360 minus 165. So 5. 195? 195? Okay, 195 degrees. Okay. Is that your reference angle? No, if some of you are like, oh, I'm confused, I don't know if it is. What are the two things a reference angle has to be? Positive and acute. That's not acute, so you should say, okay, wait, hold on, something's wrong. So let's find out where 195 is. Here's 0, 360, 90, 180, 270. Where is 195? It's over here somewhere in quadrant 3. Good. What is the rule for Q3? It's the angle minus 180. Good. So I'm going to say my angle of 195 minus 180 is how much? 15. Is 15 degrees positive and acute? Yes, you're good to go.
you said that the first angle that we get that they give you has to be positive, right?
You want it to be positive, and you want it to be between 0 and 360. So if say it was like 500, just subtract a circle. All right, how is number 8 a little bit different? It's in radians. How do you know it's in radians? If it's starting out in radians and has a pi in it, what should your answer have in it? A pi. All right, now some of you guys think, Elliot, you told us before, Elliot thinks she can see the unit circle in her mind. That's great. If you can't, if you're asked to find the reference angle, and you're like, oh, I don't know where pi over 6 is, what can you do? We can convert it. Let's go ahead and just convert it to degrees. I have my pi on the bottom and my 180 on the top because I want my pi's to cancel out, right? So, how many times can 6, excuse me, go into 180? 30 times, 30 degrees. Well, let's think about this, guys. Where is 30 degrees? It's in quadrant 1, isn't it? What's the rule for quadrant 1? That's the answer. Because your reference angle has to be positive and acute. Think about it. If I were to draw my reference angle, it's from a point on the terminal side to the x-axis. That's why your reference angle, if it's in the first quadrant, is equal to the measure of the angle. So is my answer here 30 degrees? No. What is my answer? Pi over 6. Why can't I just leave it as 30 degrees? Because your answer started off what? In radians, so your answer needs to be in. Yep.
What's the rule for quadrant? Is it
360 minus. All right, let's scoot on down here. Now, again, if you see things in terms of pi, if you can look in radians, that's fine. If not, what can we do? I can convert this. I can go ahead and convert. Guys, look, this is a negative angle. Your negative doesn't just go away. You need to keep it there. Don't make a mistake with that. That would be a silly mistake. But my pi's will cancel. How many times does 3 go into 180? 60. So I have negative 7 times 60 is negative 420 degrees. All right, there's 2 problems with this one. What's the first problem? It's negative. And then what's the second problem? It's greater than 360. So let's add one whole circle. I'm going to add one whole circle. What's negative 420 plus 360? What is it? Negative 60? Okay, negative 60 degrees. Oh, is 60 degrees my reference angle? Why not? Because it's negative. I need to find something between 0 and 360, so I'm going to do what? I'm going to add 360 again. Well, when I add negative 60 and a positive 360, I get what? 300, okay? Is that my reference angle? Is that positive and acute? No. So now you're like, okay, wait. Oh, I remember what I have to do. All I did was just find the angle that we're actually talking about. Where is 300? What quadrant? It's in quadrant 4. It's over here. So what is the rule for Q4? Q4 is 360 minus the angle given. So you have 360 minus 300 is what? 60 degrees. Okay, that makes sense. So is that my reference angle?
No.
Why not? I have to convert it back. I started out with pi in my answer. In my problem, I should have pi in my answer. So I'm going to convert this back. What is my reference angle? Pi over 3. Good. Very good. Does that make sense? Again, we start here with 12 pi over 5. What's the easiest way to attack this problem? Let's go ahead and convert. All right, if I convert, I have pi here. I have 180 here. My pi's cancel. 5 goes into 180 how many times? 36, okay, and then 36 times 12. $36 times 12. Well, 36 times 10 is 360. $432? 432 degrees. All right. What's the problem? Greater than. All right, so let's subtract one whole circle, figure out what we're talking about. What does that give me? 72 degrees. All right, so the angle that we are talking about is in which quadrant? It's in quadrant 1. What do you know about quadrant 1? The angle given is the reference angle itself. So I know my reference angle is 72 degrees, but my answer should be in what? Radians, so I have to convert back. All right, so take your time here. What number goes into both 72 and 180? 9. Okay, so this becomes 8, and this becomes what, 20? What number goes into both 8 and 20? Okay, so this becomes 2, and this becomes 5. So 2 pi over 5. All right, moving along, page. Again, on these questions, I know on here I told you guys to find all 6 trig functions. On the quiz, I think I made you find like 2 or 3, just for time. I'm not trying to stress anybody out. If you can find 2 of them, then you know all of them. But if it says to use reference angles to evaluate, all right, using reference angles to evaluate, that means the reference angle that you find is, that's ugly, is going to form a special right triangle. So let's remember what the pattern is of our special rights. 30, 60, and 45, 45, right? What are the legs of a 45, 45, 90? What's the pattern? 1, 1, right? And what's the hypotenuse? Square root of 2, okay? What is the side across from 30 in a 30, 60, 90? Excuse me. Side across from 30 is 1. What's the hypotenuse? 2. And what is the side across from 60? Square root of 3, okay? The reason that these are important, guys, is because you're given this angle. It's going to tell you to use reference angles. When you find the reference angle, it will be 30, 60, or 45. So then you can figure out what quadrant you're talking about, and you can figure out what the trig ratio would be. So if I'm going to use reference angles to find the sine and the tangent of 9 pi over 4, well, let's talk about what is 9 pi over 4 in degrees? What is that? This cancels. Does 4 go into 180? How many times? How much? Is it 45? Okay. And then what's 45 times 9? 405. So this is 405 degrees. All right, well, that doesn't help me out much. All I know is that's the angle that we're talking about, angle 405. So what should I do? Subtract. Let's subtract 360. What's 405 minus 360? 45. All right, that's the angle that we're given. The angle that we're given, that we're talking about, is 45 degrees. What do you guys notice about the angle 45 degrees? Where is it? It's in the first quadrant. So the angle that they gave us is also what? The reference angle. So you have formed this right triangle here with 45 degrees in the corner in what quadrant? The first quadrant. Why is that important? What do you know the x value and the y value are in the first quadrant? Positive. What is the pattern for a 45, 45, 90? 1, 1, square root of 2, right? So this is my x value. It's the one that goes left and right. This is my y value. It goes up and down. And the square root of 2 is your r, correct? So if you're asked to find, what I ask you to find? The sine. Remind me again what sine is? Y over r. So sine is y over r. What's my y value? 1. What's my r value? Square root of 2. Can I leave it like that? Yes or no? Nope. We're going to rationalize. So the sine of this angle is the square root of 2 over 2. Tangent. How do you find tangent again? Y over x. Okay, well, what's the y value? 1. What's the x value? 1. So what's the tangent? 1. All right, you have to know your 30, 60, 90s because you're going to place You're going to use your reference angle, and it's going to place the angle in whichever quadrant you're talking about, so you need to know the signs of the x and the y. Look at number 12. I changed number 12 to positive 300. I changed it to positive. All right, 300 is in what quadrant? It's over here, right? Everybody agree? What's the rule for quadrant 4? 360 minus the angle. So 360 minus 300 gives me what? 60 degrees. So from the terminal side on the angle to the x-axis, I have formed an angle that measures right here 60 degrees. What is the path? Yeah.
How do you know where to place the angle that you find like the 60?
Because it's, what do you mean? Like, you mean versus down here?
Yeah.
It's always, your reference angle is always formed at the origin. What's the side that's across from 60? Square root of 3. What's the side that's across from the hypotenuse? 2. And then what's the side that's across from 30? 1. Guys, what quadrant are we in? 4. So the signs aren't both positive. What is the value of 1? Positive or negative? Positive, good. What is square root of 3? Negative. Why is it negative? Because it's in the, remember, this is your x value, this is your y value, this is your r. That's why it's important. So now if you're going to find the cosine, well, cosine is x over r. So what's the x value of this triangle? 1. And what is the r? So your cosine is 1/2. Cotangent is x over y, right? Well, what's the x value? 1. What's the y value? Negative root 3. Can I leave it like that? Nope, we're going to rationalize. So it's negative root 3 over 3.
Why is this in quadrant 4?
Because the angle that was, did you change your angle to 300?
Yeah.
Well, if the angle 300 is over here in quadrant 4. And then once you find the placement of the angle, then you find the reference angle. All right? We okay? Same thing goes, let's do this one. 13 pi over 6. Well, it's the easiest way to attack this. Go ahead and convert it. So when I convert, I have pi down here, 180. This cancels, right? This cancels. How many times does 6 go into 180? 30 times. And then what's 13 times 3? 39. So 13 times 30 is 390. Okay. What do you notice about 390? It's bigger than one whole circle, so subtract it, and you get what? 30 degrees. So the angle that we're talking about here happens to be in the first quadrant. The angle that was formed right here, right, is 30 degrees. So what is my pattern for a 30, 60, 90? What's across from the 30? 1. What's across from the hypotenuse? 2. What's across from the 60? Square root of 3. Good. We're in the first quadrant, so I know everything is positive. So now it's basic. If I said to you, what's the secant of theta? What's secant? R over x. So what's my r value? 2 over square root of 3. Can I leave it? Nope. So rationalize and simplify if you can. So 2 root 3 over 3. Okay, if you are going to evaluate, say they gave me 12 pi. Well, first of all, 12 pi isn't on the unit circle, so we'd figure out where that was, all that good stuff. But if you're asked to evaluate and you end up with a quadrantal angle just means it falls upon the quadrant line. Pi over 2 is 90 degrees, right? This is 180. This is 270. And this is 360 or 0, right? So If you have something and it ends up to be a quadrantal angle, which means it's on the unit circle, we know that when an angle is on the unit circle, the x and the y value are your cosine, right? And sine values. X is cosine, y is sine. Any angle that's on the unit circle, and I'll show you why in a second, the hypotenuse, the r, is always 1. That's why if it's on the unit circle, you can just use x and y. You don't need the r. But you guys need to know the ordered pairs at these points. Think about it. If you're moving left and right, what value are you affecting? If you're moving left and right, you're affecting the x, right? If you're moving up and down, you're affecting what? So all of the quadrantal angles have 1s and 0s in them. It's just a matter of the direction that you go. If I go to the right, it's positive. So this would be 1. How much did you go up or down? 0. If I start at the origin and I go left to pi, what's the ordered pair? -1, 0. If I start at the origin and I go up to pi over 2, what is it? 0, 1. And then if I go down to 3 pi over 2, it's 0 what? -1. You guys should know those 4 ordered pairs. So if you're asked to evaluate the sine of pi, well, think about it. We've already done this in section 4.2. Sine, if the angle is on the unit circle, is the y value. What is the sine of pi? 0. If the angle is on the unit circle, what is the reciprocal to secant? Cosine. So this is the same as 1 over x, right? So 3 pi over 2. What's the x value? 0. So 1 over 0, what's your answer? Undefined. Good. Tangent of pi over 2. Well, tangent's y over x, correct? Tangent of pi over 2. What's the y value? 1 over 0. So what is my answer here? What is it? Undefined, right? If 0 is on top, it's 0. If 0 is on the bottom, it's undefined. What's cosecant? Opposite of what? So it's 1 over y. Well, it's the y value here. 0, so it's 1 over 0. So your answer is undefined. They don't all happen to always be undefined. I just want to remember, if 0 is on the bottom, it's undefined. But since this angle falls on the unit circle, it's on a quadrant, you guys need to know those 4. And somebody asked me last period, well, how come you don't have to use the r thing? Well, the reason why is because this angle falls on the unit circle. Say I was going to use any of these x, y values. If I said x squared plus y squared equals r squared, right? Let's use 3 pi over 2. So my x value is 0 squared plus -1 squared equals r squared. So 1 equals r squared, right? Take the square root. God bless you. What's r equal? 1. Any angle that's on the unit circle, the reason why you don't have to use the r value is because it's always 1. It's on those ones that I give you the trig function like 4 over 9 that's not on the unit circle. The x and y value is not on the unit circle. Mikey, question?
Are we going to have a question like that on the quiz?
Maybe. Possibly. Huh? Mikey asked if there was going to be something like this on the quiz. I said maybe. All right, anybody else have any other questions?